Get cool stuff for what you were going to do anyway. Drink beer. With Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt, you can just snap a photo of your receipt and upload it to the website to rack up points for exclusive merch. Get points for every purchase, whether you're grabbing a pint on draft, a case for a party, or a tall boy at the stadium. Any size, any product, anywhere you buy Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Sign up now at rewards.labattusa.com.
EN Radio.
Hey, Dabo Sweeney, congrats. I got you in, baby.
This is entertainment. People pay to watch this.
Pass to a cutting Hill. He darts in.
Oh! People actually subscribe.
All across central New York.
Time expired! Syracuse has done it!
It's Drive Time with your host, Tim Leonard.
Hey, guess what? I'm getting one, man.
We welcome you in on Drive Time. New week of Drive Time as the transfer portal officially opens tomorrow on the men's basketball side. We've already got some news of a new player on the Syracuse basketball roster next season. We've got some official news of coaching staff today as it pertains to Jerry McNamara and the Syracuse basketball coaching staff. We've got news of UNC's new basketball coach. It's going to be Michael Malone, the former Denver Nuggets head coach. That one came out of left field. That's a name no one had. Not Billy Donovan, not Tommy Lloyd, not Dusty May, not any college coach. Michael Malone, who was an ESPN analyst this past year after being fired very late in the season, 2 years ago, basically, for the Denver Nuggets. Won an NBA Finals with the Nuggets, Nikola Jokic and all of that. And he's the new head coach in the ACC for UNC, a competitor of Syracuse. More coaching carousel news around the country to get to as well. Luke Murray, the new head coach of Boston College, is hiring Brendan Strawn as one of his assistant coaches, former Orange basketball assistant coach. Dan Engelstad is on his way to the West Coast. Dan Engelstad will be the associate head coach at Pepperdine. That's a prime example of the coaching carousel because the new Pepperdine head coach was the former associate head coach for Virginia, Griff Aldrich. He left to go to Pepperdine and be the head coach. That freed up a spot for Adrian Autry to be what we presume is the associate head coach for Virginia. He's officially on Ryan Odom's staff at Virginia because of the opening from Griff Aldridge. And then Griff Aldridge goes and hires Dan Engelstad to be his associate head coach. Engelstad, of course, was an assistant for the Orange for the last 2 years. So we're finding out all kinds of staff news. We're finding out some transfer portal rumblings. We're trying to see if there's more info that's coming out today. Everyone's waiting to hear, is Donnie Freeman going to be the next name from the Syracuse cohort or contingency to enter his name into the portal? Of course, all these players can't officially enter until midnight tonight, and tomorrow is the official opening of transfer portal season. We will be talking about it all throughout this week. We're here with you every weeknight, 5 to 6 p.m. You can always call into Drive Time if you'd like to talk Jerry McNamara, to talk Syracuse basketball. We can certainly talk some today about Syracuse lacrosse after a interesting weekend for the men's and women's lacrosse teams. The men's team falling 14-9 to now new number one UNC on the road. I was down in Chapel Hill calling that game on Saturday. The women's team right down the road from Chapel Hill in Durham at Duke got another gutsy, defensive-minded win and another close win, and they have won 11 games in a row, the SU women's lacrosse team. So a lot to discuss on the lacrosse side of things. Big weekend ahead here in terms of spring action in the Dome. It's going to be a noon start on Monday of a triple header inside the Dome on Saturday, I should say. Noon start on Saturday for a triple header inside the Dome. It will be Notre Dame, Syracuse women's lacrosse, ranked on ranked matchup. Very important game at noon for the women's team. Then men's lacrosse at 4 p.m. Then 7:30 Saturday night, the spring game. Free tickets are available right now. I'm sure you can go to Cuse.com, get tickets for all of those games, and make a whole Saturday of going to the Dome for a triple header. Fran Brown talking a big game once again about the spring game and how he wants to have a lot of sponsors and local businesses and a lot of fans there, and they're going to discuss some of the chants and some of the new things that they're going to be bringing to the Syracuse football game day experience this upcoming year. So spring game 7:30 on Saturday, women's lacrosse at noon, men's lacrosse at 4:30. And in between now and then, we will be covering the transfer portal for both the men's and women's basketball teams. We'll be covering Jerry McNamara's staff. We're all still wondering who's that general manager, which players are going to hit the portal, which players will GMAC go after. And we can certainly open up the conversation today to any and all of that. Phone lines are open at 315-437-7644. 437-7644. That's 4 ESPN 44. We begin today with our Burdick BMW of Cicero and Burdick Toyota opening drive, where I'd like to discuss the first player that we know that is coming into Syracuse as an addition, the first kind of signee of the Jerry McNamara era at Syracuse, and that is Mark Morano Momtuvovic, is I believe how you say his last name. Mark Morano Momtuvovic, who is a 6'7" guard from Slovenia, 19 years old, played in the Slovenia Professional League this past year, has really had some highlight reel games in the U18 Eurobasket tournament, the FIBA U18 tournament, playing for the Slovenian national team. He was one of the top scorers in that tournament last summer as a member of that U18 tournament. He is considered one of the better scorers from the European overseas lens that you could acquire and bring over to college. And it's exciting to see that this is the first edition we know of for Jerry McNamara and his new staff and this new era of Syracuse basketball. Jonathan Gavoni, who does a very good job covering all of the international prospects, is an NBA draft type of guy, scouting guy, giving some good praise to Mark Morano, the 6'7" Slovenian guard who is coming over to America to play for Syracuse this upcoming season, known for being a terrific right-handed three-point shooter, 39% in his career, numbers-wise from three. In that event I mentioned last summer, the FIBA U18 Eurobasket event, where he was playing for the Slovenia national team, he scored 20 points per game. He shot 49% from three in 7 games in that event last year. His numbers in the Slovenian Pro League this past season, 13 points per game, 3 rebounds a contest, 2 assists per game as a 19-year-old competing in the professional league this past year. So it's tough to know just how good he is because none of us have seen him play in person. Jonathan Gavoni has seen him play in person, and he really spends a lot of time scouting the international side of things. And he tweeted today, or posted on X, I guess I should properly say, today, that he thinks he is about a McDonald's All-American caliber high school recruit from Europe. Said it is a big-time start to the GMAC era at Syracuse. So this is a 19-year-old that has some question marks athleticism-wise, has some question marks rebounding defense-wise, but the book on him is he is a scorer, a multi-level scorer that can fill it up from three-point range in particular. Kind of sounds like maybe this is insurance if Nate Kings does not get his waiver. I don't have a great feel one way or the other, but my stance on that all along has been I don't really see why Nate Kings would get the additional year. I felt that the Joey Aguilar case was maybe a precedent that would work against Nate Kings. We'll see. Certainly Nate Kings has been public about if he does get the extra year, he would love to play at Syracuse. He said that before Jerry McNamara was the new head coach. But it feels like Nate Kings would come back to Syracuse if granted an extra year. It feels like Syracuse would really want him to be back on the roster, certainly, when talking about Nate Kings, but I'm not sure that is going to happen. I'm not sure that that waiver is going to get cleared. I know that we're all just kind of guessing on that matter, but I don't see why he would get the additional fifth year based on some of the other precedents and waivers and rulings that have been set. Certainly you try, and sometimes the NCAA right now is just sort of throwing their hands up and not getting to conclusions fast enough, and therefore players are getting the additional year. And it feels like we're trending towards a place where everyone is going to get 5 years. But Nate Kings is the type of player that began his career at a JUCO level, and he's basically arguing those years should not count against him. There's not a whole lot of precedent in my mind that he would get the additional year. So we'll see on that front. Sticking with Mark Morano, this is exciting that Syracuse is pulling an international recruit here. I have been watching the Final Four in the NCAA tournament like a lot of you, and this is a trend in college basketball right now. There are a lot of very, very good international players that are playing on some of the elite teams in college basketball currently. Just look at Arizona's roster and Tommy Lloyd, who for years was the top assistant at Gonzaga under Mark Few and built up a tremendous background in pursuing international prospects and translating them to being very good college players for Gonzaga and then very good professional players in the NBA. A lot of what the transfer portal comes down to, because of how tight the window is, and because of how often players are moving from point A to point B, and they're on their third school in 4 years, or they're on their second school in 2 years, etc., this is a relationship-based thing. For a lot of coaches, the most important thing you can have right now from a transfer portal recruiting perspective is how good are my relationships with the agents and how good are my relationships with scouts overseas, and how well can I trust those people to feed me the right players and understand what I'm looking for, and understand that if a scout is pitching a player that in the past didn't work out that well, then maybe we don't need to go back to that specific scout. Unfortunately, a lot of these kids probably don't even step on campus now before they agree to these contracts and they agree to be $1 million players for Syracuse or other schools. So ultimately what it comes down to is how well connected are you? And how connected are you to the right people and people that you trust? Arizona and Illinois clearly have great connections overseas, great connections in Europe. Illinois' roster was comprised of a lot of foreign-born players, and this is something that we've talked about for the last couple years. And with the rev share, it's really become a big trend this past season. Virginia's best player, DeRitter, was making multiple $1 million to play for Virginia. He was a 24 or 25-year-old pro who decided to come to college because he could make multiple $1 million to play for Virginia. In the past, hasn't been that easy. You think of Jesse Edwards, and the conversation around him was, well, we can't get him NIL because of the visas and things like that. Now you've got rev share. Now it's coming straight from the school and their revenue. And the international player pool has really spiked in college. And a lot of the elite players, Yaxel Lendenberg, who's going to play in the game tonight, it sounds like, in the national championship game for Michigan. Reports are that Kentucky offered him, he said, $7 to $9 million last year to play for Kentucky. I mean, that's the entire roster budget for a school like Syracuse, we thought, this past year. And those roster budgets just keep going up, up, and up. And these international paychecks and the players that are coming overseas to play in America, they're more intrigued because they can make a whole lot of money, and then they can get to the NBA after making a whole lot of money. And the colleges are fans of it because these are seasoned players that have played in professional leagues and can help you right away. In the case of Mark Morano, this is a little different because he's only a 19-year-old. He's going to turn 20, I believe, when he gets on campus and is in the middle of his first season, in theory, for Syracuse next year. I don't know how much he's going to translate. I don't know how well Syracuse is connected overseas. It seems like, connecting the dots, Jamal Brunt, who is going to join the Syracuse staff, according to reports. He was the Penn State associate head coach. You just look up and down Penn State's roster, there's 4 foreign-born players, 4 international players on their roster this past year, a couple from Slovenia. Jamal Brunt has clearly worked with the agent of Mark Morano before. It seems like that might be the connection here that led Syracuse to acquiring Mark Morano, or as I'm going to call him in the future and just try and get this nickname going, 3M or Triple M. We've got to come up with a good nickname because Mark Morano Momtuvovic, I'm not even sure if it's Momtuvovic. I don't want to say it too much because I don't know the proper pronunciation yet. Regardless, he's a shooter. He's a scorer from Slovenia. He's got question marks on defense. He's got question marks on rebounding when you dig into his profile. Jonathan Gavoni has seen him play. He's very high on him. That's one guy. We'll see how well he translates when he comes over here. But I do like that Syracuse is tapping into the international pool a little bit. That's something that you're going to have to do. And I have been watching the NCAA tournament. I've been watching the Final Four, and I've been thinking to myself for the last month, Syracuse should be better in that area and needs to tap into the international waters a little bit more and recruit from Europe a little bit better. We've seen a couple examples recently. Marek Dolezaj is a success story. Petar Majstorovic, who is back in the portal after a successful year in year 2 at the college level at Long Beach State, didn't quite work out for Syracuse, although we didn't have great expectations for him when he came over. There are others that we could go down the list, but it's not as if Syracuse has ever recruited a player from Slovenia before, for starters, or has a great depth of players that have come from that part of the world to join them as college players for the Orange. A lot of the international recruiting scene, again, is based on connections and who do you know. And if Jamal Brunt has good connections over there, that is a big plus to add to the Syracuse staff because it feels like that's the way that a lot of the elite programs are trending. They're trying to expand their connections over there. They're trying to get a little bit more trustworthy in the resources they have over there so that they're not bringing players over that aren't ready, and they're bringing players over that they know if they spend millions of dollars for them to come over, they're going to be contributors, and maybe they will be players that are under-recruited, but if you have the right connection, the right relationships in certain parts of Europe, and you've got a hotbed or you've got some knowledge of the scouts to know over there, then you could be set up for success. And I do think it's not nothing that Syracuse, New York is maybe not the most attractive place for someone in America to live, or we talk about the climate a lot, and convincing a high school kid to come up from Texas or to come up from Florida to Syracuse might be challenging to some extent. A European-born player, he might not have a great lay of the land of what's in America. He's probably just looking for who's going to pay me the most. And he's probably looking for which coach or which scout that I'm involved with and I trust says I should go to this school. And he's going to follow the lead there. So if Syracuse is enhancing their relationships, connections overseas, that is a big positive going forward. And that was encouraging for me, at least, to see as part of their first signee here, their first addition to the roster next year, Mark Morano Momtuvovic, the 6'7" guard from Slovenia. We can certainly talk about him a little bit more as the show continues. We can also dive into the coaching staff and what I make of the 3 official announcements from assistant coach perspective today. We can also talk SU women's basketball, men's lacrosse, whatever's on your mind. But we will do that after a timeout. That was our Burdick BMW of Cicero and Burdick Toyota opening drive. 437-7644 if you'd like to call in. You're listening to Drive Time.
Westwood One coverage.
What's up, chat? I don't think I shut Kings down. I think that's kind of what I've been saying all along, that I don't really view him as, I don't see why he would get the waiver, but I do hope he does. The Timinator, that's a new one. Women's basketball's got 7 in the portal, Jen, actually. But the number, we don't need to freak out based on the number. I think we've got to normalize that this is part of college athletics now. And we haven't seen who they're bringing in yet. So let's evaluate the overall offseason once we know who they're bringing in. If Kings was at Duke, you'd be given another year. Maybe. Derek Dixon would make sense. I don't know if he's option number 1 for them, but we'll see. Tully's Tenders, that's all. Triple M, 3M, what's our best nickname? Mo Money Mac. This is a nickname chat. All you do is give me nicknames. We've got to come up. Eminem. Women's basketball portal. I know. We're talking about the 7 players have hit the women's basketball portal for Syracuse. Not quite the entire team. They brought back the one player that they really need to bring back, Uche. That was priority number 1. Success there. They've got 3 other players that are still on the roster, plus maybe if you get an extra year for Dominique Darius, that's 4. And you've got a lot of money freed up to go after good players in the portal. Bowling Ball, I think you might be onto something. I think it's a matter of rev share spending. Not so much NIL. The women's basketball program does need more NIL, which Coach Jack has been honest about. But last year, they were in a very good spot compared to the rest of the league from a rev share perspective. My guess is that players are leaving because they're not in the same spot rev share-wise. And that could be because Jerry McNamara is getting more money rev share or football is getting more money. I don't know what the case is, but I think the rev share spending has probably gone down for them. And well, on paper, last year seemed like they really exceeded expectations because they were preseason 13th in the league and they finished 7th. I think that based on what they gave Coach Jack and her staff in rev share last year, they didn't quite get to that mark. So they're probably scaling back partially because of that. But that's all just me kind of guessing based on comments and everything. We don't know the GM yet, Tronic. Filia is out of eligibility. F rev share. Rev share is good for Syracuse. It's if anything, helping women's basketball, helping football, helping men's basketball. It's not all coming from NIL, but it has made the overall budget of rosters go up tremendously. Bruce Pearl was talking the other day about $4 to $6 million in his final year. I think the Auburn roster was like $5 million. They made it to the Final Four. That now would not even get you remotely close to the Final Four. And next year, people are talking going from like $8 million is a good roster or $9 million puts you in the ballpark. So you need to be in the $12 million range. It just keeps going up and up. I don't know if Hop will be the GM. Doesn't really make sense to me that he would take the gig, but GMAC has kind of been hypothesizing a guy who's the GM that certainly would fit the bill of Hop. So we'll see. Don't have a good read on that one.
Watch your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com.
Welcome back into Drive Time. Monday afternoon Drive Time in CNY. We're live on QSportsTalk.com. Our chat is rolling there. We're live on the YouTube, Q Sports Talk on YouTube. You can watch the radio show. Imagine that. You can chat away live with our live audience and drop all your Syracuse sports takes in there and vent about whatever is going on. Or seems right now, actually, we're just mostly positive about what is going on around Syracuse basketball and Syracuse sports in general. So if you just want to drop positive takes, that's also welcome in the Q Sports Talk chat on our YouTube stream or on our Twitch stream, which is always accessible if you're on the go at QSportsTalk where you can get all of our shows. Let's go to the phone lines for the first time this afternoon at 437-7644. You can give us a ring, and we start today with Scooter in Jamesville. What's up, Scoot?
Timmy, did you get home in time to watch the Final Four, or were you still in Carolina?
So I watched the second game until I decided to go to sleep because the second game was like 70-45 or whatever it was.
Well, the thing I didn't understand, and, it's one of those things that I was totally confused, but between the games, they had a concert. I mean, there's enough time in between. Yeah, they posted the time. It's supposed to start at 8:49, which is about right, about 40 minutes after the game. All of a sudden, there's a concert. The game, they don't even start until 9:20. They come back out with commercials says 42 minutes before tip-off, and that's like 20 to 9. I'm going, you got to be kidding. I mean, it's the Final Four, and you need a concert. They draw in people to watch the games. I thought that was kind of nuts. But full disclosure, 2 months ago, I put in future bets who's going to win the title, and I had Michigan and Florida. Florida was plus 1,500 at the time, and Michigan was plus 500. So
you're rooting for Michigan tonight, is what you're telling me.
I'm definitely rooting for Michigan. It's one of those things where, you know what, I can go. I actually can middle it or win both ways. We take Connecticut plus the 6.5, and Michigan can win the game outright. So we'll see what happens. But Tommy Lloyd, you talk about getting players overseas or whatever. That's how Gonzaga. That's what he did.
Right.
I mean, the Sabonis of the world, the Learndykes. And of course, when he went to Arizona, he had the same model. Now, I'm not a Tommy Lloyd in-game person. That's why I didn't like Arizona, because I don't think he makes great in-game adjustments. Great recruiter. I don't think his players get better. And if you watch that Michigan game, I don't know what adjustments he made just to try to change the MO. I mean, it was nuts. But if that's the way I think people are going to be going, is over Europe. And Gonzaga had a guy from Spain was their point guard. He was a true freshman. But I think that's the way you're going to have to go. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if how this player is developed. He's young, 19, but didn't Virginia do some stuff like that? They got all older players, 22, 23.
DeRitter, their best player, 24-year-old, I think. Yep, and he was a huge pickup for them. I mean, he was a pro that decided to play college this year, and that's becoming more common.
No, I see Carolina's got Malone. Is that official, or is that just out there?
Yeah, Michael Malone, the Denver Nuggets former head coach, is going to be the next head coach at UNC.
And that's the other way I thought going, is that you're going to see more NBA-type prototypes maybe coming back to college, or because it's almost like the NBA. You got to deal with agents. You got to deal with players that are maybe not going to be around one and done. But Malone is interesting because he wins the title, but it looks like he was hard on his players, right? Is that the reason why?
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I don't know. It's fascinating. I guess his daughter is on the UNC volleyball team, so it made sense for him to. But that was a name that no one really had, except for maybe one or two people. I mean, we're all trying to figure out all of these coaching searches, and it's like the AD search with Brian Blair. No one had that name until Pete Thamel dropped the news. And Pete Thamel dropped the news this afternoon. Everyone's talking about Billy Donovan and Tommy Lloyd and Dusty May. And, I mean, there was 10 or 15 names that were thrown out for the UNC job, and Michael Malone's name was not on that list.
Well, his father coached at Syracuse.
Yeah, assistant coach,
So when he went to Denver, I said, I wonder if that's his son. And so I started rooting for Denver a little bit. They're in the playoffs. But you're in the playoffs and you get fired. That's the instant part. But anyway, so tonight's game, if Michigan can shoot the ball from outside, I mean, you can't stop them. If they get the 1-2 punch. But they seem, Connecticut's got sort of like a bad penny, but I just don't see them being able to stop Michigan inside. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I would lean Michigan as well, Scoot. But, I mean, Dan Hurley has proven us all wrong several times in the last 4 years, basically. So I'm hoping for a close game. My gut says Michigan is going to win this game, though, by 10 or 12 points, probably.
Well, I'll be happy with one.
Yeah, and then you'd middle, right? And you get everything.
And I'm thinking about it. I'm going to watch it up at Point Place where I can make in-game real-time bets, and I can almost wait and see if how the feeling is in the game, and then I can the middle at least go win both ways, or definitely cash one way.
Yeah. All right, Scoot. Well, enjoy the game tonight.
All right, Timmy. Thanks.
All right, Scooter in Jamesville. Anytime we say Gonzaga on this show, you know Scooter is calling. It's like a bat call. I figured that was going to be our first call. Let's talk a little bit about the staff, because I mentioned that 3 assistants are now official on Jerry McNamara's staff. The school releasing today that Ryan Daly from VCU, who we expected after some reports, is an assistant coach. Ben Lee, who was the top assistant basically at Siena under Jerry, is coming over to Syracuse. And then Arenze Onawaku, who we all kind of expected logically would come from Siena to Syracuse, a former great big, of course, for the Orange, is one of the assistant coaches. The 3 assistants that have been officially formalized. Jamal Brunt is on the staff. We know that based on reports. It seems like he was instrumental in the connection here with the Mark Morano. So it feels like Jamal Brunt, who was the defensive coordinator, associate head coach at Penn State, would not join Syracuse unless he is pretty much the same role, associate head coach / defensive coordinator. I would imagine that will become official. You got to keep in mind some of these are contract-based, and maybe Jamal Brunt's contract is not officially up at Penn State, and they're waiting to get him through the HR paperwork and everything to formalize it. But you're crazy if you don't think Jamal Brunt is already involved in helping this team, or for that matter, all these assistants that I just named haven't been involved for the last week or so. Syracuse is not going to be behind when the portal opens tomorrow. I'm sure that GMAC has been working hard. In fact, he said during his press conference that I'm going to go home and don't follow me home because my assistant coaches will be working with me at home tonight. And I'm sure that they have been in and around the walls of Mello and the Mello Center and helping GMAC already to this point. So that's 4 names that we know right now that are confidently on the staff, 3 officially, and then Jamal Brunt, we assume, is on the staff as well. That's 4 names. Ryan Blackwell, I did not mention. On one hand, it's kind of puzzling to me that Ryan Blackwell would not be introduced or announced at the same time as Arenze Onawaku or Ben Lee, the other Siena coaches. I can't imagine his contract is still not officially up at Siena compared to the other coaches. I'm sure he's on a similar type of contract and wavelength and timeline as Ben Lee and AO. So you could make a case, well, if they didn't drop Blackwell's name now, why wouldn't they do it now? It's possible that he is not a quote-unquote assistant coach, but he's joining the staff as maybe more of a player development role. That's me just speculating. I would assume Ryan Blackwell is involved with the Syracuse coaching staff next year. I am a little surprised that they just didn't release his name in the group that went out today, but it's possible they're just trying to space these out a little bit, or they had their reason for that. I would expect Ryan Blackwell to be involved with the Syracuse coaching staff, though. I would expect Brian Bury as well to be involved, and now you're getting into the neighborhood of 6 names that we have mentioned. We're getting some comments in our Q Sports Talk chat. Spatching the Wheeze asking, GMAC referred to NBA connections. No one on staff fits that bill yet, do they? No, not really. So we're still waiting on the general manager, and I don't see a world where GMAC was describing a GM that has NBA connections, has grassroots recruiting experience, and it's one of these guys that we have named to this point. Jamal Brunt, we just talked about, has some international connections, and we're assuming that that is how they got set up with this Mark Morano. And Brunt and Penn State with Mike Rhodes have been tapping into the international waters and have been pretty active over there. So I could see them having some international connections or some NBA connections on the staff currently, but how GMAC laid out his general manager, both on Orange Nation and during his press conference, doesn't exactly describe any of these coaches to this point. I don't think that a Brian Bury or a Ryan Blackwell would be the general manager, but I do feel like they're going to be a part of this staff in some capacity. This staff seems to be very good to this point, and I don't want to poo-poo the idea that it isn't. I think we would have been excited no matter what staff GMAC would have brought in, because this is the time of year where you bring in a new coach, there's newfound optimism, and it's kind of beauty is in the eye of the beholder season right now, where if you're Virginia, you think Adrian Autry is a great hire because he's your associate head coach now, and he was a former head coach, and you can talk yourselves into really all of these hires. I would imagine that BC feels very good about Brendan Strawn being their assistant head coach or assistant coach, just as a lot of Syracuse fans felt good when Brendan Strawn was brought on to be the assistant coach for Adrian Autry initially. Essentially, any staff GMAC would have put together, just like the staff that Red put together, we probably would have given it some props out of the gate. This staff, though, in particular, does come across like Syracuse is spending more money on their assistant coaches than they have in the previous couple seasons. This staff has a nice mix of, we've got a defensive mind that's experienced in Jamal Brunt. We've got a Ryan Daly offensive mind. We've got some outside the family guys. We've got some inside the family. We've got some loyalty from the Siena coaching staff. We've got some young guys, some older guys. It seems to be a very solid staff, how it is shaking out. That being said, I don't know who the general manager is. And that's the biggest question mark, and it is a little bit surprising that we don't know the GM as of 5:35, the night before the portal will officially open here on midnight and the day before the portal opens. I'm sure that whoever the general manager is already in place and working. Is it possible that, say, a Pete Corsiniti, who has been involved with the Syracuse coaching staff and probably will still be, I'm guessing, the director of basketball operations for Syracuse, could he have some say in kind of the GM position or helping to scout, or are other coaches going to step up, or even Jamal Brunt tapping into his connections a little bit, it seems like already is an example of that. But I would imagine the general manager, Jerry, has known from the time that he was at the podium for his press conference to the time he took this job. He has locked them in, and they are working, and they are on the phones, and they are starting to get things together, if not already have everything together on who they want to attack in the transfer portal as names continue to leak out, and then will officially be in the portal starting tomorrow. I'm very curious, though. That general manager position, I don't have a good read on. I know a lot of you think, or maybe are hoping, it's Mike Hopkins based on how GMAC has talked about that candidate or that coach or that general manager, I should say. Certainly, he's talked about someone that kind of is describing Mike Hopkins when he mentioned NBA background and grassroots recruiting. I would put it under 50% that it's Mike Hopkins, not knowing anything, but just guessing based on what we know of Mike Hopkins, that he was seemingly trying to get another head coaching job in college. It would be a little odd to me if he would take the general manager position. That being said, it would be a tremendous hire. And if Jerry has convinced him, who I'm sure Mike Hopkins is kind of like a mentor to Jerry, if he's convinced him to be the general manager, I think Hop would kill it in that role. I'm not ruling it out, but I'm not necessarily convinced that it makes a lot of sense from a Mike Hopkins perspective. That's what we know of the staff right now, though. Maybe some more information will leak out as the show continues. Maybe by tomorrow we'll have more clarity on who the staff is as well. If you'd like to call in, you can. We'll hit a timeout here. We're going to talk a little bit about the women's basketball team and their start to the transfer portal, because that is officially opened on the women's side since the season is over. The national championship game happened yesterday for women's basketball. So the transfer portal officially open as of today for women's basketball. And Syracuse has 7 names in the portal, and we can discuss why it's not time to panic necessarily about the SU women's basketball team. Also, we can talk a little men's lacrosse and women's lacrosse as we continue, plus take your phone calls. You're listening to Drive Time. Cuse in the house. You might be right, but also it seems like he did get an offer from Siena and he turned it down, right? So he did get that offer. Hey, Paulie.
I forgot to tell you guys this.
Oh, wow.
It was Hello Kitty Day in Boston. Hello Kitty threw out the first pitch. And I got I'm a man, I'll admit it. I got a Hello Kitty commemorative cup.
How much you pay for that?
Like $8, $9.
You're a big commemorative cup guy, I feel like. You enjoy those, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when are you going to get a Hello Kitty Red Sox cup? That's a once-in-a-blue moon opportunity.
And then Flavor Flav threw out the pitch the day after. So.
Really? Huh. Did you see the Nationals' first sip?
Yeah, that's what you always just tell me.
Yeah, and it was just some girl who chugged a beer, basically. Clearly wasn't her actual first sip. It's funny, though.
I had a beer in high school once.
Did Steve, though? That's
don't make a promo.
Yeah, right. Oh, man.
I don't know why Spatching the Wheeze just ran. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about, but him just saying random names makes me laugh.
Oh, yeah, in here.
Chat and I'll be like,
Weather was great in North Carolina, Zach. It was lovely.
I was just saying nice things about you, Spatching, and you just said F-bomb.
The Triple M news? I mean, what, this morning that he's coming? Or is there more news?
He's not even a real person.
Yeah.
That would be
He's Brooklyn Vic or whatever.
I had to shut off Twitter today because I just had it scrolling on my computer, and everybody that entered the portal was Syracuse needs to get this guy.
Yeah, right.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
Look out for this guy, Syracuse.
GMAC better go after him.
Paul brought up a good quiz, like a good test, which you can't do now, but if Nate George entered the portal today, like with his Syracuse stats, but he was coming from another school, people would be like, we need to get that guy here right now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's what they were doing last year.
We need to get that guy here immediately.
Whoever GMAC brings in, it's just going to increase optimism, even if like people will talk themselves into, GMAC will get them to develop or do this, which is, it very well might be the case, but we've never really lost an off season and we haven't made the tournament in 5 years. So
everybody booed William Kyle. He was probably the best pickup there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Triple M is the new Slovenian guard that they have added to the roster. We're calling him Triple M because I'm not entirely sure how to say his last name. It's Mark Morano Momtuvovic, I think. He's a 19-year-old Slovenian. 3M. Lacrosse did seem a little overmatched. That was tough. They had a good game plan, took Joey out. Offense left a little to be desired. Defense couldn't cover. Dami Petramala struggled on ground balls. UNC is really good, though, and they were at home, so I wouldn't freak out. They're still in very good shape. 6th in the rankings, 4th in the RPI. I don't think UNC is the team they want to see again, though. That may have been a tough matchup for them. Maybe they can make adjustments next time, though, because they probably will see them again. Phone's ringing, Paul. Oh, there he is. He got it. Triple M. What's Mike Veely going to call him? Triple M. Buddy Bullseye. You're getting pranked. Oh. Whoever's trying to call, it's not going through. Paul just picked up the phone and they just keep hanging up.
ESPN 97.7 and 100.1. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com.
Rolling along with Drive Time on a Monday afternoon. Tim Leonard with you. Have we told you had to wait for the needle drop there. Have we told you about the Cavalcade of Cars? The Jammers Sports Pub and Restaurant Cavalcade of Cars, proudly presented by the Syracuse Nationals. Saturday, April 18th and Sunday, April 19th at the New York State Fairgrounds Expo Building. Hundreds of vehicles, including classics, lifted trucks, Jeeps, motorcycles, and more. If it's got wheels, bring it. Get your vehicle out of storage this spring and register it for the show. Cavalcade of Cars at the New York State Fairgrounds Expo Building. Live music both days. Over 35 awards presented on Sunday afternoon. Kids 12 and under are free. For tickets, sign up your ride. Get your admission tickets online at cavalcadeofcarscny.com. Presented by the McGuire Automotive Group. So don't forget, April 18th and 19th. Not this weekend, but the following weekend is the Cavalcade of Cars. Did we finally get this mysterious caller who kept hanging up? I think we did. I don't know if it was Dave in Utica every time. We kept getting a caller, and every time Paul picked it up, it was just dial tone. But we've got Dave in Utica on the line right now, and he wants to talk some Syracuse lacrosse. What's up, Dave?
Hi, Tim. Don't blame the messenger. I only called once, and I hung up, and I called again. So okay.
No, I'm not. I'm not blaming you. I was just wondering.
He's busy on the other end, Tim. He's busy on the other end. You don't know that, you know.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask you, how was your drive time down to Livingston, North Carolina?
Well, I didn't even have to do a show Friday. It was Good Friday, so I was down there and I just hit the golf course. It was lovely. Low 80s temperature. First golf round of the year. It was a good time.
How's the swing?
A little rusty, of course. It was my first round, but certainly I had a lot of fun, for sure. Had some good moments that hopefully I can build on for the next round.
Very good. Now, did you get a chance to see any of the last quarter of the women's match?
So I watched it because our game ended. I couldn't get there in time, or a couple people did leave that were on the trip and then drove right down the street to Durham, like 15 minutes away. I wasn't one of those people, but I did watch the end of the game. I saw that unreleasable penalty. Things tightened up a little bit, but I mean, just another really great win for them, and in similar fashion to how they've been getting these very impressive wins.
Oh, especially, you know, I kept the medal notes. 19 seconds where Bree Peters takes the green card.
Yeah.
And I was a woman up. Now, there will be a release on a goalie, too, right? So it'll be two women up, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So you figure two women up, 19 seconds left, and they clamp down and they win the game.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is, Dave, I've talked to Reggie Thorpe a lot, and the way they've been playing games recently and having the midweek games, these quick turnarounds, they've just been going, and he's kind of worried that they haven't practiced a ton on situational lacrosse, and he said they're going to dedicate a lot more time to that in the future. But having said that, every situation late in games, this team looks really poised, and they're making clutch plays late in games. And they've been put in some weird spots, and they keep playing close games, and they keep winning. So there's something in the DNA of this team that they're grooving right now, and they have a lot of confidence because they've been in a lot of close games, and they've closed out a lot of those.
Right. He even said after the post game about how important his deep middies are.
Yeah,
which is true, because they've been so consistent through the whole year, and that makes a difference. Because they do all them small things, but they're totally important.
Absolutely, so that's always one of the more underrated positions in both the women's lacrosse and men's lacrosse. We probably don't talk enough about that, for sure.
Definitely not. Well, Tim, good talking to you, buddy.
All right, Dave, appreciate you checking in. Dave in Utica, and we talked some on Orange Nation about the men's lacrosse team, and I got some comments in our Q Sports Talk chat during the break about how men's lacrosse looked outclassed and overwhelmed. It certainly was a tough game for the men's team down the road at Chapel Hill against UNC. I'll say this about UNC. They probably have the best shooter in the country, Dominic Petramala, who put in 5 goals on 10 shots, and he is an elite outside shooter. He can shoot off the bounce. He's left-hand free. If it is 10, 15 yards, doesn't matter. He's probably going to pick a corner, and he's going to fire a cannon in there. So he's one of the best shooters, maybe the best shooter in the country. Owen Duffy is probably the best dodger in the country, and he's the best guy, late shot clock, behind goal line extended, behind the goal that you need to initiate, need to make something out of nothing. He's the top guy in the country right now to give the ball to late in the shot clock. He's the best dodger, in my mind, in the nation. And they definitely have the best face-off guy in the country as well. And that's proven by the stats. And honestly, Syracuse was hanging in very well in the face-off category at halftime. If you would have told me at the start of the game they would be around 50-50 at halftime, I think they were down one face-off at halftime. At one point, it was even early in the third quarter in the face-offs, and then it kind of got away from them, and they ended up losing the face-off 17-10. But if you would have told me at halftime they'd be about 50-50 at the face-off dot, I would have guessed Syracuse would have been leading the game. They were down by 3 at halftime. So UNC had a great game plan. Dave Petramala, Tommy's dad, and the assistant coach, the defensive coordinator for UNC, former defensive coordinator for Syracuse, clearly knows the Syracuse personnel very well. He had a great game plan. He had his defense very prepared. They took Joey Spallina out of the game. And my biggest concern right now is Syracuse Lacrosse, and I say that knowing that they sit 4th in the RPI and knowing that they're in very comfortable positioning here as they turn back home and play Virginia at home, a good Virginia team that has won back-to-back games. But they're really in great standing to make the tournament, be a high seed in the tournament, even though they had a disappointing result on Saturday. That being said, my biggest concern for them lifting a trophy, getting in the Final Four, is how well the pieces fit together on offense. And it feels like teams have ramped up the defensive attention on Joey Spallina this year. He always sees the number one pole on the other team. He always sees a lot of defensive attention. He always draws a lot of slides, etc. It's even more this year. And I think Dave Petramala and other coaches understand that if they can do all they can to minimize Joey as a feeder, there's not a whole lot of other guys on the offensive top 6 or top 9, for that matter, for Syracuse that are pass-first guys or known for their passing. And we saw Owen Hiltz last year could be that guy if Joey Spallina was taken out of the game. Hiltz was as reliable as really any player to come through Syracuse in a very long time, and he's been a terrific professional player as expected since he left Syracuse. He is a tremendous passer, great skip passer, and was for Syracuse. He's also a good outside shooter. I think they're lacking the skills that Owen Hiltz had offensively last year a little bit. Outside shooting at times, outside of Luke Roa, who's a tremendous two-handed outside shooter, can be a little suspect, and teams have packed it on Syracuse quite a bit, and they didn't get any chances inside against UNC. The same way it felt like they didn't get any chances inside against Princeton, because that was their game plan against the Orange, and that's the two most disappointing offensive performances of the season, and those are the two games that Joey Spallina has been held scoreless. So they've got to find a way if Spallina is drawing that much defensive attention. Finn Thompson saw a short stick in that matchup. Peyton Anderson saw the pole. They were double polling the Orange's midfield group quite a bit throughout that game, so Wyatt Hoddle and Peyton Anderson were seeing a deep pole. And if that's the case, they've got to find a way to make some adjustments and get Finn Thompson in the pick game, get him off ball, try and get whoever he sets a pick for switched onto a short stick. UNC did a very good job of getting Petramala onto a short stick. They've got to get creative, and I'm not sure that the offensive pieces fit together as well as they did last season. I do think that Jimmy McCool will bounce back. I think John Mullen will continue to be solid at the faceoff X. I'm really not that worried about Syracuse's defense. They had an off game, certainly, and Jimmy McCool also had an off game. And by the way, if Carolina's goalie, Josh Marcus, a freshman, is saving 15 shots, if you would have told me that at the start of the game, I would have been very concerned that Syracuse was going to lose. And sometimes the goalie matchup is so valuable, and the middle of the field, goalie play, face-off play can really swing big games. Syracuse, we expected to lose in the face-offs. They did. We didn't expect them to necessarily get less from the goalie position than UNC. They did, and that was tough to overcome. That's my recap on the men's lacrosse game. We'll take a timeout. We'll talk some women's basketball transfer portal, why you shouldn't panic right now about the amount of players that have entered the portal for Coach Jack and her squad. That's next on Drive Time.
Be sure to tune in.
Sport Boy, my clubs are already down there, which was nice. I left them down there. I went home for Christmas because my parents' home is right near where we were, Chapel Hill, Raleigh area. And I left the sticks there because I knew that they were no use for me up in Syracuse necessarily. And I take 2 or 3 trips between Christmas and basically this past trip in April down there. So I played 2 rounds. The first trip I took for UNC women's basketball was snowing down there. I brought snow down there, of course. So I did get in. I shouldn't say 2 rounds. I played like 5 holes one night when I got in a couple months ago. And then this was like my first round of the year down there. Ryan, I think Ludwig would be a good pick for the Masters. And it's an interesting year because there's not a lot of guys that are really like peaking that are the stars. Scotty's trending down, but he's still Scotty. Rory's had the back issue. Morikawa was playing really well. Then he's kind of had a back issue as well. He's sort of trending down. Yeah, I would say Ludwig or, I don't know. I'm trying to think about the live guys. Like Bryson, I think, will probably play well. Don't want to forget about John Rahm. But yeah, Rose, maybe. Yeah. I mean, he was great last year, of course, and he's come close there a lot. I don't know. I think he's probably never going to get it done at Augusta, if I were to guess, Justin Rose. Don't really love Max. Is Max Homa? I haven't really thought about him. I mean, is he definitely in the field? I guess he should be, but he's just been not as trending up either. Yeah, Zach, we could see UNC in the ACC tournament. That seems kind of likely, honestly. Could see them in the NCAA tournament as well. Patrick Reed, maybe. He usually plays well there. Of course, he's a winner. I could see that. My pick to win would probably be Ludwig Oberg, though. Ludwig. No one knows how to say this. I mean, the announcers all call him Ludwig, but everyone calls him Ludwig. Yeah, he has kind of dropped off. Homa. I agree with that. He's a great interview, great personality, but you don't see him up at the top of the leaderboard as much. Ride, Captain Ride, exactly. Had to wait for the needle drop. Still haven't put in new bumps. That may never happen. I always think maybe today will be the day, and it hasn't been the day yet.
State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee. This hour of Orange Nation is brought to you by Syracuse Bicycle. Visit them at SyracuseBicycle.com. ESPN Radio 97.7 and 100.1. Watch your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com.
Final segment this afternoon on Drive Time. Tim Leonard with you, 5 to 6 p.m. Or as they have been lately, 5 to like 6:15 p.m. on Drive Time. Every weeknight, lots to discuss this week. Transfer portal officially opening tomorrow. Nate George in the portal, plans to enter the portal. Tyler Betsy plans to enter the portal. I'm sure we'll find out some more names by the time we talk tomorrow. Maybe Donnie Freeman will be one of those names. Maybe a Luke Fennell, who's coming back. GMAC did say in his presser, number one order of business, player retention. The cupboard is not bare here. We know Kyan Anthony is a player that will be retained. His dad, Carmelo Anthony, has pretty much confirmed that on his podcast. We know that Kyan will be back and probably be a decent part of the Orange offensive approach and attack, and certainly at the very least, a role player or a rotational player next year for Syracuse as a sophomore. What about Sadiq White? Is he going to be coming back? It's nice that we have not seen his name drop in the portal. That would fall in the surprising category for me. Women's basketball, the portal opened today. They have now 7 players in the portal, and I really would encourage all of us that follow college sports now to not overreact to the number of players that is in the portal. I have said this throughout the football portals, throughout men's basketball, women's basketball portals in the past. We have to start normalizing that this is a part of college athletics. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe it shouldn't be a part of college athletics. President Trump putting in an executive order, basically his second executive order where he's trying to correct and come to some solutions for college sports right now. And in that executive order, which who knows if it'll get passed and who knows how quickly it could get passed, they're hoping that by August, the executive order would enforce the NCAA to kind of bring it back to how it was before, where you can transfer once and you have 5 years to play. And that's it. If you transfer a second time, you have to sit out a year. So actually, a little bit different than how it was before, because you would have to sit out a year regardless if you transferred. Now we're seeing all kinds of players bounce up and down in the portal. Petar Majstorovic starts his career at Syracuse, goes to Long Beach State. After he wasn't playing much at Syracuse, he proves himself at Long Beach State. Now he's probably trying to transfer up again. There's countless examples of that. So there are 7 players for the women's basketball team in the transfer portal as of today, the first official day of women's basketball transfer portal opening. Sophie Burrows is the big surprise, or the big name out of the 7. I would also put Jasmine Cooper as disappointing to see in the portal. I would categorize that one as someone I definitely would have liked to see come back. She was a freshman, highest ranked recruit this past year. I viewed her as someone that, if anything, was going to take a leap next year and be a pretty valuable player for the team. Then you get into Shai Hawkins, is probably the 3rd biggest name in the portal. She started a good chunk of games this year for Syracuse as their 5th starter. They kind of rotated that 5th starter throughout much of the year, but Shai, as a sophomore last year, was a solid player that played in pretty much every game. She did not play, actually, in the first round NCAA tournament win over Iowa State. But outside of that, she was a steady contributor throughout the year. Maddie Potts, a fellow Australian with Sophie Burrows, did start the NCAA tournament games because of the injury to Dominique Darius. Solid shooter, wasn't counted on for more than kind of spot minutes here or there. She's in the portal. Camden Nelson, freshman, had some potential, but did not play a ton this past year. Started some games at the beginning of the year. Good passer. Like her as a long-term piece, but unfortunately, it just sort of makes sense, some of these players hitting the portal. Aurora Almon, also in the category of did some nice things, had some nice moments on the 15-player roster for Syracuse last year. She probably slotted in as maybe player 8 to player 10, depending on the week, depending on the game. Not a huge loss, but someone that has entered the portal. And Justice Fitzgerald was probably player 15 in terms of minutes played this year. It definitely was, out of the 15 players on the roster. So those are the 7 names that have entered the portal for SU women's basketball. Uche Azoje is definitely coming back. Uche was an honorable mention All-American this past year as a freshman. She is going to be a preseason All-American as a sophomore and has all the makings of a future star, not only even at Syracuse, but maybe at the WNBA level when she gets there. She is a cornerstone franchise piece that you are bringing back. Kira Scott has not entered the portal. Liv Schmidt has not entered the portal. Angelica Velez has not entered the portal. Hopefully you bring those 3 players back. Those were all solid contributors throughout much of the season. Liv Schmidt had the great game in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Madison Howard is a freshman who has signed, so that's the 5th player on the roster that we know of next season right now. They're trying to get an additional year or maybe a half year from Dominique Darius. Not sure how likely that is, but Dominique Darius would obviously slot back in as your starting point guard. If she does get an extra year, she would want to play for Syracuse next year. I would say this. We got some commenters on our YouTube chat comparing it to for the Virginia situation. Virginia women's basketball fired their head coach, or parted ways officially with their head coach, Coach Mox, former player for Coach Jack, former assistant coach for Coach Jack, Amaka Gugwa Hamilton. Coach Mox was doing a very good job at Virginia, I thought. Brought him back to the tournament for the first time this year. Took him on a run to the Sweet 16 as a 10 seed. So it was met with shock and awe, basically, when they parted ways with her, and that came out this weekend. More reports have come out that maybe it was a toxic environment there. It sounds like a lot of players from Virginia were expecting to enter the portal. There was a report every player but two would hit the portal, and that's potentially why they moved on. If you think it is culture-related, I would say let's pump the brakes on that, because if it was culture-related, why did no one enter the portal last year after Syracuse had a 12-18 season? Every player that could come back last year did come back. A lot of those very players that decided to come back last year are now opting to go into the portal this year. My answer usually when we talk about the transfer portal and we're trying to draw conclusions, it's almost always finances and money. And it's frustrating maybe that that's the case. And I don't think that Syracuse is in a bad situation financially on their women's basketball side. My read, my educated guess, I could be off, but my read on this is they were in a very good situation last year, and that's why they were able to retain a lot of the players. And after being in a very good situation last year, which was year one of how do we allocate our money that we have through revenue sharing. $20.5 million was the cap this past year. We know Syracuse hit that number, and they allocated $20.5 million to their athletics program. So we don't know exactly how they do it. We will probably never know exactly how they do it year in and year out. My read is women's basketball got a good chunk of that money last year. They put together a very nice roster. They retained a lot of good players. I'm wondering if maybe this upcoming year, new head men's basketball coach, Jerry McNamara, a lot of urgency to be successful in men's basketball. And after you put in a decent amount of money probably to women's basketball, and you had a nice season, but it wasn't like they broke through and got to the Sweet 16 or had the type of year that says, okay, we're building something very strongly that we need to continue to put in the same amount of resources. And it's just a matter of some years it's going to be more money for women's basketball, some years more men's basketball, some years more football, and men's basketball feels like the focal point right now. And it probably should be the focal point. So maybe that is part of it. I would say that it's not culture. It's probably more money related. We'll see how it all plays out. I would also say just because 7 players have entered the portal, that's not reason to panic. Look at the ACC right now. Several teams have 5 or more players that have already hit the portal, and that number is going to continue to go up. And honestly, there are 3 or 4 of the 7 that I mentioned that it just made sense that they would enter the portal. It might have been a mutual parting of ways. The same way I discussed with football, we got to stop looking at the football number of players, and that's how we determine whether they did good in the portal or not. How many players left? Fran Brown told a lot of the 28 or 29 or whatever it ended up being number of players. He told a lot of them to leave. And he said as much when he talked on Orange Nation. Some of it was academic related. Some of it was we're bringing in players that are better. We've got to reallocate our money. So the number means really nothing. And I say that because Sophie Burrows is a bigger loss than Justice Fitzgerald. And Daryl Gill is a bigger loss than the third-string defensive back who you guys didn't even know his name until he entered the portal. And then some people are using that as fuel to add to the tally of the number of players. This is the reality of college sports now. And the other thing, and the other component, is we find out who is leaving before we find out who is coming in. Syracuse brought in a lot of great players on the women's basketball side of things last year in the portal. They're bringing back Uche Azoje. They're going to surround her with some good players from the portal. I'm confident in Coach Jack. I'm confident she'll go out there with their staff. She's got Michaela Walker, who is now the general manager, who has been scouting all year and has been ready to go hard for the players that she wants to bring in and that Syracuse basketball wants to bring in. So let's see how it plays out. Let's wait a couple weeks, then we can evaluate the overall offseason. There's no reason to panic just yet when it comes to women's basketball. That's going to wrap up Drive Time this afternoon. It is Masters Week. We were talking in the Q Sports Talk chat about our Masters picks. We'll maybe talk some Masters as we continue throughout the week. We'll certainly be reacting to more transfer portal news that becomes official, more roster news for Syracuse basketball, both on men's and women's basketball. We will also discuss the coaching staff, the general manager, hopefully get some of these assistant coaches on our airwaves this week. We'll see if we can do that, and we'll be your one-stop shop here on QSportsTalk.com for everything you need to know about Syracuse sports in this transition period. It used to be that we didn't have a whole lot to talk about in April. We've got 2 great lacrosse programs. We've got portal season. We've got new coaches to discuss. We've got football spring game coming up. There is a whole lot to discuss, so keep it locked here on ESPN Radio Syracuse, QSportsTalk.com, Q Sports Talk on the YouTube page. You can find us in podcast platform. Wherever you get your podcast, just type in ESPN Syracuse /Utica Rome, and that will get you the podcast feeds as well. But thanks for listening. Thanks to Paul for producing, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on ESPN Radio and QSportsTalk.com.
Did you miss Drive?